Imagine waking up in a grand mansion, hopping into your private helicopter and jetting off to your own private island. For the Rothschilds, this isn't just a fantasy, it's reality. As one of the world's wealthiest and most influential families, they have access to a level of luxury that most of us can hardly fathom. But just what does that entail? Let's take a closer look at some of their most extravagant possessions. The Rothschild family's rise from humble beginnings in an 18th century Frankfurt Jewish ghetto to becoming a trillion-dollar dynasty is nothing short of remarkable. With a rumored net worth of $2 trillion and an annual income of $390 billion, they are considered by many to be the real richest family in the world. Their vast empire includes over 1,800 luxury mansions, more than 100 private jets, and stakes in major corporations like Shell Oil and De Beers. But how did one family amass such incredible wealth and power? That's what we'll be exploring in this video as we unveil the secrets behind the Rothschild empire and take a peek inside their lavish lifestyle, the origins of an economic dynasty. The Rothschild family's journey to becoming an economic powerhouse started back in the 18th century with one man, Meyer Amschel Rothschild. Born in Frankfurt's Jewish ghetto, Meyer had humble beginnings, but he had a plan. He decided to send his 5 sons to major financial centers across Europe. Talk about a power move. This strategic positioning allowed the family to expand their influence and wealth like never before. The Rothschilds were smart. They knew how to take advantage of economic upheavals and wars to grow their empire. When everyone else was panicking, they saw opportunity. They financed both sides of conflicts, ensuring they'd come out on top no matter who won. Pretty clever, right? But their contributions went beyond just making money. They actually helped shape modern banking as we know it today. One of their biggest innovations was introducing government bonds. This allowed countries to finance their activities by borrowing money from the public. It might sound simple now, but back then, it was a game changer. The Rothschilds also established the first international bank, making it easier to move money across borders. These innovations laid the foundation for the global financial system we have today. But let's be real, the Rothschilds didn't become one of the most powerful families in the world by playing nice. They knew how to manipulate markets and influence politics to their advantage. Take Nathan Rothschild, for example. He's famous for pulling off one of the biggest financial coups in history during the Battle of Waterloo. By spreading false rumors and buying up a ton of bonds, he managed to make a killing on the stock market. Talk about insider trading. Of course, their tactics haven't always been popular. The Rothschilds have been the subject of countless conspiracy theories over the years. Some people claim they control everything from the media to world governments. While that might be a bit of a stretch, there's no denying the family's incredible influence. They've had a hand in shaping everything from wars to economic policies. But what about all that wealth? Just how much money are we talking about here? Well, estimates put the Rothschild family's net worth at around $2 trillion. That's right, trillion with a T, and their annual income, a cool $390 billion. It's hard to even wrap your head around numbers that big. So what do you do with all that cash? Well, if you're a Rothschild, you buy everything from luxury mansions to private jets. But their taste for the finer things extends beyond just material possessions. Just wait until you see their collection of some of the world's most expensive and rare cars. The Rothschilds' exotic car collection. When it comes to ultra-luxury cars, the Rothschilds have some of the most incredible collections in the world. We're talking rare, exotic, and wildly expensive rides that most of us can only dream of owning. Take Nathaniel Rothschild's Bugatti Veyron, for example. This sleek beast can go from 0 to 60 in just 2.5 seconds and has a top speed of over 250 miles per hour. Oh, and it cost him a cool $2.5 million. Chump change, right? But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The family also has a thing for vintage cars. They've got classic Ferraris, Aston Martins, and Rolls-Royces that are worth a fortune. James Rothschild is said to have a particular love for Porsches. He's got a whole fleet of them, including a rare 1973 Porsche 911 Carrera RS that's valued at over $1 million. And let's not forget about the custom rides. The Rothschilds have been known to commission one-of-a-kind cars that are tailored to their exact specs. Take Lord Jacob Rothschild's custom Bentley, for instance. It's got bulletproof windows, a built-in humidor, and even a special compartment for his umbrella. Because why not? Of course, these cars aren't just for show. The Rothschilds love to take them out for a spin. They've been spotted cruising around the streets of London, Monaco, and Beverly Hills in their flashy wheels. It's a display of wealth and status that's hard to ignore, but the Rothschilds' love for cars goes beyond just owning them. They're also big players in the auto industry. The family has invested heavily in car companies like Porsche and Tesla. They even have their own racing team called Black Falcon, which competes in events like the 24 Hours of Le Mans. So what does all this mean? Well, for one thing, it shows just how much money the Rothschilds have to burn. These cars are the ultimate status symbols, and owning them is a way of showing the world that you've made it to the top. But it also speaks to the family's love of luxury and their appreciation for the finer things in life. For the Rothschilds, cars aren't just a way to get around, they're a passion. Now, if all this talk of million-dollar cars has got you feeling a little jealous, just wait until you see some of the family's incredible mansions. Examining Rothschild Mansions. The Rothschilds don't just own cars and art, they've got some of the most incredible homes you've ever seen. When you're this rich, a regular old mansion just won't cut it. No, the Rothschilds have what they call palaces. And trust me, that's not an exaggeration. Take Waddesdon Manor, for example. This place is like something out of a fairy tale. It was built back in the late 1800s for Baron Ferdinand de Rothschild, and let me tell you, he spared no expense. The house has 45 rooms, each one more extravagant than the last. There's a grand staircase, a wine cellar that can hold over 15,000 bottles, and even a special room just for smoking cigars. I mean, who needs a man cave when you can have a cigar lounge? But Waddesdon Manor isn't just a pretty face, it's also got some serious historical value. During World War II, the house was used as a safe haven for evacuated children, and today it's a major tourist attraction. People come from all over to gawk at the Rothschilds' opulent lifestyle. If Waddesdon Manor is the fairy tale castle, then Gunnersbury Park is the sprawling country estate. This place has been in the Rothschild family since the 1800s, and it's easy to see why they've held on to it for so long. The house itself is huge, with over 200 rooms. But it's the grounds that really make Gunnersbury Park special. There are acres and acres of lush gardens, complete with fountains, statues, and even a Japanese-style tea house. But here's the crazy part. Gunnersbury Park is actually considered one of the Rothschilds' smaller estates. I know, how can a 200-room mansion be small? Well, when you compare it to some of their other properties, it starts to make sense. Take Mentmore Towers, for instance. This place was built in the 1850s for Baron Mayer de Rothschild, and it's got over 300 rooms. That's right, 300. The house is so big that it actually has its own train station, and the interior is just as impressive as the exterior. There are gilded ceilings, marble floors, and more antiques than you can shake a stick at. But even Mentmore Towers pales in comparison to the Rothschilds' crown jewel, Waddesdon Manor. This place is like a mini Versailles. It's got over 3,000 acres of land, a private golf course, and even its own fire brigade. The house itself is a work of art, with intricate carvings and stained glass windows that would make any museum curator green with envy. So why do the Rothschilds need all these massive homes? Well, for one thing, they make great places to entertain. The family is known for throwing lavish parties and hosting dignitaries from all over the world. But there's also a practical reason. These estates are investments. The Rothschilds have been buying up property for centuries, and they know that land is always a smart place to put their money. Of course, owning all these palaces comes at a price. The upkeep alone must cost a fortune, but when you're as rich as the Rothschilds, that's just a drop in the bucket. In fact, their real estate holdings are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to their vast wealth. The Rothschilds in the global economy. But the Rothschilds' influence extends way beyond just fancy houses and flashy cars. This family has their hands in some of the biggest pies in the global economy. We're talking banks, oil, mining, you name it, they've probably got a stake in it. The Rothschilds control a huge network of banks and companies all over the world. They've got their fingers in everything from the Federal Reserve to the Bank of England. And when you've got that kind of power, you can pretty much call the shots on global economic policies. Take their investments in the mining industry, for example. The Rothschilds have major stakes in companies like Rio Tinto and Glencore, which are some of the biggest players in the game. They also own a huge chunk of the Agora oil and gas company, which gives them a serious say in the energy sector. But it's not just traditional industries that the Rothschilds are interested in. They're also betting big on tech. The family has investments in companies like Amazon, Apple, and Google. So every time you order something on Prime or use your iPhone, you're putting a little bit of money in the Rothschilds' pockets. Now, some people might say that having this much control over the global economy is a bad thing. And sure, there are definitely some shady dealings that go on behind closed doors. But the Rothschilds would argue that their influence is actually a stabilizing force. When you've got that much money and power, you can pretty much weather any storm. Of course, it's not all work and no play for the Rothschilds. They definitely know how to live it up when they're not busy pulling the strings of the global economy. And when you're this rich, living it up takes on a whole new meaning. For starters, the Rothschilds have a serious thing for yachts. And I'm not talking about your average millionaire's boat. No, these are the kind of yachts that have their own helipads and submarine garages. The family's crown jewel is the PL****9, a $140 million floating palace that's basically a small city on the water. But it's not just about the toys. The Rothschilds also know how to throw a party. They're known for hosting some of the most exclusive events in the world, with guest lists that read like a who's who of the rich and famous. From black tie galas to private concerts, these parties are the ultimate status symbol, and that's really what it all comes down to for the Rothschilds: status. When you're this wealthy and powerful, you're not just playing in the same league as everyone else. You're playing a completely different game, the billion-dollar lifestyle. But just when you thought the Rothschilds couldn't possibly get any richer or more powerful, they pull out another trick from up their sleeves. It turns out this family has a serious passion for the finer things in life, and we're not just talking about fast cars and fancy houses. No, the Rothschilds know how to live it up in a way that most of us can only dream of. For starters, they've got a fleet of private jets that would make even the most seasoned traveler jealous. We're talking top-of-the-line Gulfstreams and Boeings, decked out with all the latest gadgets and gizmos. These planes are like flying mansions, with plush leather seats, fully stocked bars, and even private bedrooms. When you're a Rothschild, you don't just fly first class, you fly in your own damn plane. But even their jets can't compare to the family's real pride and joy: their yachts. The Rothschilds have a serious thing for boats, and they spare no expense when it comes to their floating palaces. The crown jewel of their collection is the PL****9, a $150 million super yacht that's basically a small city on the water. This thing has it all: swimming pools, helipads, even a submarine garage. And the inside is just as impressive, with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and enough gold trim to make even the most ardent minimalist cringe. Of course, the Rothschilds don't just keep all this luxury to themselves. They're known for throwing some of the most exclusive parties in the world, with guest lists that read like a who's who of the rich and famous. We're talking black tie galas, private concerts, even full-blown festivals on their sprawling estates. These parties are the ultimate status symbol, a chance for the Rothschilds to show off their wealth and rub elbows with the global elite. But it's not just about the flashy toys and the fancy parties. For the Rothschilds, this kind of opulence is a way of life. They move in circles that most of us can only dream of, brushing shoulders with presidents, royalty, and billionaires on a daily basis. When you're this rich and powerful, you're not just playing in the same league as everyone else. You're playing a completely different game. Of course, all this wealth and status comes at a price. The Rothschilds are constantly in the public eye, and their every move is scrutinized by the media and the masses. They've been the subject of countless conspiracy theories and accusations of shadowy dealings, with some people even believing that they're secretly running the world from behind the scenes. But for the Rothschilds, it's all worth it. Because when you're this rich and powerful, you're not just living life, you're shaping it. They've got the kind of influence and resources that most people can only dream of, and they're not afraid to use them to their advantage. The Rothschilds and the wine industry. But the Rothschilds' billion-dollar lifestyle isn't just about private jets, yachts, and exclusive parties. They've also got a serious passion for something a little more refined: wine. That's right, the Rothschilds are big players in the world of winemaking, and they've been at it for centuries. It all started back in the 1800s, when the family bought up a little vineyard in France called Chateau Mouton Rothschild. At first it was just another piece of their ever-expanding empire. But over time the Rothschilds realized that wine could be more than just a drink. It could be a status symbol. They started pouring money into the vineyard, hiring the best winemakers and investing in state-of-the-art equipment. And it paid off. Today, Chateau Mouton Rothschild is one of the most prestigious wineries in the world, with bottles that can sell for thousands of dollars apiece. But the Rothschilds didn't just stop at making great wine. They also started using it as a way to show off their wealth and influence. Every year, they commission a famous artist to design the label for their vintage. We're talking big names like Pablo Picasso, Andy Warhol, and even Prince Charles. These labels have become collector's items in their own right, with some selling for almost as much as the wine itself. It's a clever move when you think about it. By bringing in famous artists, the Rothschilds aren't just making their wine more valuable, they're also making a statement about their place in the art world. It's like they're saying, hey, we're not just rich, we're cultured too. Of course, the Rothschilds' influence in the wine industry goes way beyond just one vineyard. They've got their fingers in a lot of different pies, from Champagne to Bordeaux, and they're not afraid to use their money and power to shape the industry to their liking. Take the famous Judgment of Paris wine tasting back in 1976. At the time, French wines were considered the best in the world, and American wines were seen as a joke. But at this blind tasting, a panel of French judges actually preferred the American wines to the French ones. It was a huge upset, and it sent shockwaves through the wine world. But here's the thing. The Rothschilds were one of the main organizers of the event. They knew that American wines were starting to gain some serious traction, and they wanted to be ahead of the curve. By helping to legitimize American wine on the global stage, they were positioning themselves to profit from it down the line. It's just another example of how the Rothschilds use their wealth and influence to shape the world around them. They're not content to just sit back and enjoy their billions. They want to be at the forefront of every industry they touch. And speaking of industries they touch, there's one area where the Rothschilds really flex their cultural muscles: art. With a collection that spans centuries and includes some of the most famous works in the world, the Rothschilds aren't just art collectors, they're art influencers. The Rothschild Art Collection. But just how did the Rothschilds amass such an incredible art collection? And what kind of power does it give them in the art world? It's no secret that the Rothschilds have a ton of money. But they don't just use it to buy fancy cars and houses. They've also poured a lot of their wealth into art. We're talking paintings, sculptures, you name it. If it's got a hefty price tag, the Rothschilds probably have it in their collection. Just how much is this collection worth? Try around $2 billion. That's right, billion with a B. The Rothschilds have been collecting art for centuries, and they've managed to get their hands on some of the most famous pieces in the world. We're talking works by the likes of Rembrandt, Vermeer, and even Leonardo da Vinci. But the Rothschilds don't just buy art to hang on their walls. They also use it as a way to flex their cultural muscles. By loaning out pieces to museums and galleries around the world, they're able to shape the way we think about art. They get to decide which artists are worth paying attention to and which ones are just flashes in the pan. It's a smart move when you think about it. By controlling the art world, the Rothschilds are able to control the conversation. They can make or break artists with just a few well-placed loans or donations, and that gives them a lot of power, not just in the art world, but in society as a whole. Of course, the Rothschilds aren't just in it for the power, they also genuinely love art. Many members of the family are serious collectors in their own right, with a keen eye for spotting talent. They're not afraid to take risks on up-and-coming artists, and they've helped launch the careers of more than a few modern masters. But even with all their money and influence, the Rothschilds can't control everything in the art world. There are always new artists and movements popping up, challenging the status quo, and that's a good thing. It keeps things interesting, and it means that even the Rothschilds have to stay on their toes. Philanthropy and global impact. So yeah, the Rothschilds have a crazy amount of money and influence, but they don't just use it to live it up and collect fancy art. They also put a lot of it towards helping other people. I'm talking serious philanthropy here. Education is a big one for them. They've donated millions to schools and universities all over the world. And it's not just about writing checks. They really get involved. Like, they'll sit on the boards of these institutions and help shape the curriculum. They want to make sure the next generation is getting a top-notch education. But that's not all. The Rothschilds are also huge supporters of the arts. They've given a ton of money to museums, theaters, and cultural organizations. And again, it's not just about the money. They'll often loan out pieces from their own collection to these places. They want to make sure that everyone has access to great art, not just the wealthy elite. Health is another big issue for the family. They've funded medical research, built hospitals, and supported public health initiatives. And they don't just focus on physical health, they also care about mental health and addiction. They know that these issues can affect anyone, regardless of how much money you have. But perhaps the thing the Rothschilds are most passionate about is supporting the Jewish community. They've been doing it for centuries, and they're not slowing down anytime soon. They've donated millions to Jewish organizations and causes, from schools to synagogues to cultural centers. And then there's Israel. The Rothschilds have been instrumental in supporting the country since its founding. They've funded all kinds of infrastructure projects there, from roads to buildings to parks. And they've been big supporters of the Israeli economy, investing in all sorts of businesses and industries. But the Rothschilds' philanthropy goes way beyond just the Jewish community. They're also involved in all kinds of humanitarian work around the globe. They've donated to disaster relief efforts, refugee aid, and poverty alleviation programs. They know that they have the resources to make a real difference in the world, and they're not afraid to use them. Of course, all this philanthropy doesn't come without controversy. Some people wonder if the Rothschilds have ulterior motives. Are they just trying to buy influence and control? Are they using their money to push their own agenda? But honestly, I think that's just cynical. The Rothschilds have been doing this stuff for generations. If they were just in it for the power, they would have gotten bored by now. No, I think they genuinely care about making the world a better place. They know they've been incredibly lucky in life, and they want to give back.